Okay, honestly, we just need to get you guys new ones. Like, straight up, there's not a single one of these things that just doesn't break. Why are they even here? Thank you to our final patrons, Citizen Lancelot, Art Goon, Praise the Sun, and Strawbones. A big thank you to our noise $69 tier patron, Brian. Now, before we hop into the breakdown/review of Chapter 61, Part 2 of Record of Ragnarok, please leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a picture down below. We can support for as low as $1 a month. Any support would be appreciated. Now, let's get into it with last month's poll. So, last month I ended up asking y'all a pretty simple question. Who did you want to win? Notably, we had been talking about who we think was going to win, but honestly, we hadn't discussed who we wanted to win. Notably, I was a little bit vocal about my thoughts, but y'all were also a little bit vocal with your thoughts too, because with a 65%, Qin Shi Huang is the one who took the lead over Hades at a meaty 35%. And notably, this is a poll where I definitely understand both sides here. To go with the side that I personally don't agree with, even though as much as I love it, is Hades. Notably, the reason I don't necessarily vibe with Hades too much is because like, all my love for Hades comes from other media other than Record of Ragnarok. I think he's cool in Record of Ragnarok, don't get me wrong. I think he has sauce. I think he's quite drippy. But in terms of like his fighting, his abilities, all that stuff, he just feels underwhelming. And as much as I do love his like care for his family, obviously he's the one who got Adamas revived, and at the same time he's the one who loved his brothers so much. And you know, we love familial love. Like, come on now, we support that. We put respect on his name. It's just, it's not as good as Qin. Like, straight up. The reason I want Qin to win is just because of how interesting his backstory is, how interesting his power set is. I love his design too. I honestly want the upset, like straight up the humans taking the lead over the gods. Like, that would be just legendary. Like, there's not just micro reasons why I like the character more, like on terms of like backstory, intrigue, mystery, uniqueness. Nothing to compare. Like, notably, I know there are other stories with Qin Shi Huang in them, but I haven't read them, so I don't have any standard to hold him to. So the Record of Ragnarok standard is very, very good based off the backstory, and also just so far really, really interesting in comparison to Hades, who outside of the brother love has been kind of bland and stale. Like, he hasn't done anything fighting style wise or otherwise. So I'm definitely leaning towards Qin, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Qin still lost. That's the unfortunate thing, right? Like, I could see the mangaka getting us so deep into it. Like, yeah, you love this, right? He's so amazing, isn't he? Wouldn't it be a shame if he just died live on air, and I killed him in front of you with no remorse or regard for your feelings or my own, because I despise are happy. No, I'm kidding. But like, in actuality, I wouldn't be shocked if Qin still lost, especially after the state of this chapter. However, good to know. I'm glad to get this poll in. I love getting you guys' opinion on this. So make sure you drop your thoughts on tomorrow's poll, dropping at 12 p.m. in order to make sure you get your input in for next month's review. What's up, guys? I've got the pencil here, and here we are to review Chapter 61, Part 2 of Record of Ragnarok, which is known as Hades' Pride. And quite understandable. I can see the pride. I can definitely see the pride right there. It's not too hidden. It's pretty flagrant, if you ask me. However, let's talk about what's so flagrant. So we open up and we get to see reused pages. I mean, I know it's fine. Like, I'm not necessarily complaining, but yeah, these are literally the exact same pages from the end of last chapter. I know it's a part 2 chapter, but like, usually you can get away with 1 page, but 2. I'm not saying they're ugly pages though. Like, obviously, I can see why the author would want to reuse them, or the mangaka would want to reuse them, because whichever one of them drew it, really, really good. I love both pages, but we get the spread out for Poseidon, and then we get Hades grabbing the blood and pushing it back on his head. So pretty heat. But then we get to see Huang. We finally get to see his reaction. He's like, why would he inflict so much damage to himself? He knows that's not how it works, right? Like, initially, we were all confused too, because like, we were all on the same page. We were like, well, Huang has actually slaughtered people, Hades. So you damaging yourself to try and debuff him isn't really going to do much. He's probably seen much worse. considering he's actually seen people perish in front of him. So obviously his eyes would have picked up on that too, and he got him used to that. However, it looks like Hades played a song, because he proceeds to lunge in, and notably, the drenched in blood Hades is ready to strike at Kin. But Kin is like, I'm excuse me, sir, I'm not sure if you have realized or not, but we've done this song and dance before, and it usually ends with me puffing air into your face. But we see that where Kin aimed with the air blast was a star point on Hades' right pectoral. However, when the star point goes to land, Hades can't acknowledge it, but it bounces onto his blood first. So essentially, Hades can feel where it is, can tell how that was about to disrupt his strike, and then as he still feels the impact of the airbolt, he still does feel it slightly, because you see the reverberations throughout his body, but then he transfers the energy elsewhere to not lose all his momentum, and then goes into a downswing instead of the thrust that he was initially going for. And with that, Kin is unable to fire a second airbolt in time to react to the new star point that's formed, and has to just strictly avoid the downswing that Hades swings to kill him with. And it's pretty impressive that he's able to, like, with that extra little bit of reaction time and the slightest bit of a buffer, Hades managed to absolutely not necessarily fully negate, because if he fully negated it, then Kin would be dead. But still, the ability to at all neutralize what was really giving Kin the entire fight up to this point, the ability to weaken Hades and redirect a lot of his attacks, being able to neutralize that at all is really, really good for Hades, and it really puts him back in the fight, when considering so far it looked like he was pretty much out of it. And notably, we see that due to the blood, it's allowing him to pick up that delay, and Hades truly believes now that he's discovered the way to counter his ki disruption, Kin poses no threat to him. And even Kin is breathing heavy and looking around like, maybe he's spitting. But notably, Hades, you didn't exactly completely counteract it. Like, unless I'm mistaken, it looks like you still were slowed down, right? Like, sure, you could switch attacks, but that delay there, unless you erase that delay between attacks, it's not going to happen properly. Kin could keep disrupting your ki and just find an opening in the lag timing between. However, we get to see that Ares is impressed and completely buys Hades' story. He's like, wow, okay, golly gee willikers, Pops. Or not Pops. Golly gee willikers, Uncle Hades. That was a pretty mean strat right there. I like what you did there. So he covered himself in blood so he could see that when he was a kid. It's truly incredible. I mean, I guess that was the most readily available resource. But, like, what? I mean, we get a reason why. But, like, before, when I was initially reading the chapter, I'm like, did you need to, like, tear your chest open, though? Like, you had a blood wound. But I guess maybe he needed a whole lot of it. And, like, I don't know. I mean, it's metal. It's metal as heck. And I do love just, like, the image of him tearing his chest open. It's really, really cool. But at the same time, it's like, really? That's a lot. It's a lot to do. But I guess anything to survive, right? But we see that Ares is like, well, if what Hades is saying is true and the like button is indeed free, maybe you should press it. Also, the subscribe button, if you haven't pressed that already, that greatly helps out the YouTuber you're watching. That got the no, I'm kidding. But Ares is like, straight up, if the move is neutralized, Kin's kind of done. The battle is pretty much over. And obviously, Hermes, being the goat he is like, I mean, kind of, but not necessarily. That's not the whole story. That's not the entire package. There's actually a little bit more to our uncle's blood than you would really know about. And then you get to see that, the blood on Hades. The thing is, though, I mean, unless, like, looking at the earlier panels, all the blood that Hades supposedly ripped out of himself that was on the blade just disappears. I know that's a hard detail to keep track of, especially if you're drawing action scenes. And once again, I'm not entirely sure how, like, I'm not sure what the communication is behind the artists or, like, who fact checks things whenever they're rereading through panels, because obviously it has to take a year and a half to draw. But earlier on the panels, you don't see this soaking red blood effect or the melting blood part on Hades' weapon at all. It's specifically not there. The weapon is, in fact, perfectly clean. So when I saw this, I was like, and it made me double take, but it's fine. It's fine. Obviously, Ragnarok's art is so good that a little bit of art inconsistency is not going to suddenly, it's trash. I just can't even read it. All art consistency just murders the narrative for me. And that's not going to be the case on my end. We get to see that Hades' blood is apparently not simply blood. And now that he has coated his entire weapon in it, and now it is soaking down his entire weapon, supposedly it is finally completo. And he commands it to Avengers, assemble. And bada bing, bada boom, the blood, all the energy that's in the blood begins to pulse and thrum. And, let me stop. But essentially it begins to flow out of Hades, all this blood and its energy. It flows out of Hades and then proceeds to flow into the weapon itself, leading to a very interesting effect. Well, not necessarily the most interesting. I'm not going to lie, considering how hyped this seemed to be, I was like, oh shoot, is he going to get like a super weapon or something like that? But no, the weapon splits, like the two parts of the bident split just a little bit more, go into like a quadrant, then become quindent, and then just proceed to merge back into a spear. I mean, it's a pretty cool spear. And if I draw what I think I'm going to draw, I'll be wielding that spear. But still, the idea that this great, massive, hype blood transformation, as Jesus describes it as Hades' blood, also known as Pluto Ichor, which is cool. I like the callback to not only the god's blood, which is known as Ichor, but also Hades' Roman designation of Pluto. But apparently, Pluto Ichor essentially makes that any blood that, any specifically divine weapon, this isn't just a regular weapon, it has to be a divine weapon. Any divine weapon that has Hades' blood, the Pluto Ichor, spilled on it, harbors Hades' life force and becomes even stronger. So essentially, as long as you have a bit of Hades' blood on your weapon, you can amp yourself. And this is a point I want to point out later. It says any divine weapon. That's what Zeus mentions here. Any divine weapon that has Hades' blood on it. And this seems to be a process that happens nigh on automatically. Not like I'm not sure if Hades is specifically channeling his blood here, because notably the other thing about Pluto is that unlike the original incarnation of Hades, if I'm not mistaken, Pluto is also the god of riches. So it would make sense that his blood would have some sort of effect on weaponry. But it seems like Hades is lacking. I mean, actually, now that I think about it, he did manage to fuse the remainder of Poseidon's weapon into this weapon. So maybe Hades does have some finite control over what effects his blood has on certain weaponry, considering he's controlling the mutation. And he does, then again, he does straight up say the word assemble. So it is entirely possible that this is a you can't just non-consensually do this. You need Hades' consent in order to activate Pluto Ichor special effects. But I don't know, it's interesting. It says, and Zeus is saying any defined weapon, but it's Hades' own blood, so we probably know better. The reason I even bring that up is because what happens in this chapter is that Kin's weapon, or his divine weapon, his armor, his divine pauldron, I do believe, gets broken and damaged. However, Hades is covered in blood. So, hypothetically, the way that you could reinforce said divine weapon is just have Kin swipe his armor through Hades' blood. It's much easier said than done, admittedly, but at the same time, Kin has enough evasive maneuvers that I wouldn't be shocked if he could just and then kind of re-up his Volund. In a similar way to how Sasaki used his Volund, or like re-Volunded his, so he had the two blades instead of the one, in the same vein to something like Jack did, where Jack used his own blood to make his weapon stronger, or no, to make his attack potent. Kin could end up using Hades' blood, considering it could work on any divine weapon, and while this is a whole Valkyrie that Kin is wearing, it still is a divine weapon. So if that's how Kin ends up winning, like he actually ends up draining Hades' life force by constantly taking his blood away, and then lowering it and lowering it and lowering it until Hades is just out of life force and dies, I'd actually be pretty cool with that. However, we get to see that with this amazing ability, Zeus brings up that drawback, right? Since his life force is tied into the weapons that his blood gets poured into, if his life force is completely drained, he'd perish. And if he perishes, and obviously the match is over. But then we get to see the blood coalesces and forms into the singular weapon known as the four-bladed spear of destiny, Ichor Desmos. Calculator. Does anyone else use Desmo calculator back in school? I don't know. But regardless, we get to see that obviously this weapon, it means business. Even if it is essentially just a really fat-headed spear, it obviously has some different war about it. You can tell by how the winds are like gathering around Hades. This pressure is high. And we get to see that apparently this weapon has been pulled out before. As Hades describes it, King of Men, this is my trump card. And That's interesting. Notably, the idea that this supposed amp isn't permanent makes sense, but I wonder how you revert this blade. I guess Hades just has to reabsorb his own life force, but at the same time, if he can transfer it back into himself without like draining the blood from the weapon, why did he have to cut himself? Oh, I mean, maybe the cutting of himself, maybe the cutting of him, but no. Then again, he requires the blood to temper the weapon, because his Pluto Ichor is what makes the weapon stronger and allows him to transfer his life force. So does he just like suck the life force back out of the blade and get his blood back? I don't know, because the implication that comes from him saying this is my trump card is that the like button is free and that you should press it to help me out, please. But no, but the implication that comes from this is my trump card is that he's used it before on other people. So I don't know, I'm just kind of intrigued on like the blood retrieval process. Unless like maybe the blood runs out. Is there like a specific timer that I just don't know about? Like, is that, let's see, I don't know. I know it's a very weird thing to get hung up on, but I'm intrigued mainly because I'm wondering if that's how Kin's gonna win, because if he can just activate it by taking Hades' blood, that'd be a really cool way to flip the, like, if Hades pouring out his blood was a way to flip the script on Kin's ability to flip the script by knocking away his air bullets, or no, like by hitting him with air bullets and weakening his attacks, then it'd be a really, really cool for Kin to flip the script back onto Hades by using his own blood to re-amp his weapon after his own abilities were negated. I don't know, I just think it'd be cool, but I'm not exactly sure how the whole blood system works here, how the life force donation works, and how much this assembly stuff merely matters. But overall, just a really, it's an interesting ability that plays on something we haven't seen before. The idea of these characters getting bloody throughout their fights is very, very common, but it's rarely used. Like, the only other time blood was super duper important to the way a battle ended up going was the Adam fight, when you really think about it, because never mind, that is a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. Both the Jack and the Adam fight were very dependent on the blood of an individual doing some things. So this time, the blood actually being an amp to both sides rather than just a debuff for one, which is essentially what happened. Like, Adam lost the fight because the eyes of the Lord got tapped by some blood, bada bing, bada boom, they overheated. Hercules lost the fight because Jack's blood was everywhere. He covered his hands in it and went whoop, and right into him. So it would in fact make a little bit of sense that this new blood gimmick would be cool. Once again, even if it is the idea that blood determines a fight, it's a different spin on it, and that's what I appreciate, right? Because there are only so many ways you can tell a narrative in the first place, so the way you spin that narrative really, really matters in terms of how interesting the narrative can be. However, we do get to see that Hades lunges back with this spill of Desmos, and actually that's actually pretty interesting. We've lost all correlation to Persephone, and we still haven't seen her. Like, notably, all of Hades' attacks up to this point were named Persephone. Persephone this, Persephone that, Persephone this. But now we get to see this new attack with Desmos is Ichor Eos? Ichor Eos, Blood-Led Dawn. Ichor Eos. Is that maybe, hold on, is that a Greek word for anything? Let me see. I don't think so. But then again, I don't know my Greek. Eos Greek. Eos, oh, the Dawn Goddess. The goddess of the dawn who rose each morning. Okay, so that's a Greek goddess. Interesting. Desmos Greek. Hold on one second. So Desmos means like bond or band or link or something like that. So that would make sense that the weapon becomes Desmos once it's linked to Hades' body. That's really, really cool. I like that. Terra's flesh Desmos. This is technically a part of Hades attacking. Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. And Ichor, so, ooh, that's actually a really cool. I'm not sure, like, this is my Spanish coming in. Actually, no, that doesn't make sense because Ichor's fair. But like, essentially, the thing that I was wondering is like Ichor Eos, would that technically like translate to Blood-Led Dawn Ichor Eos, or like Eos's blood, the Dawn's blood would be the name of the attack, but I guess it's Blood-Led Dawn. That's still a really cool name, Blood-Led Dawn. That's actually really impressive, especially considering how it ties in the Desmos. However, we get to see that Kin is about to be overwhelmed by the attack because it's lunging in at that maximum speed. However, like, Kin, I get why he's doing this, because mainly he's forced to resort back to this older way of attack, but it seems like Kin has enough reaction speed to dodge it. Like, he dodges the attack, so he doesn't get blitzed here. So the fact that he goes in to try and stop this amped attack is kind of a show of arrogance from him. Like, I get what he's trying to do, because notably, he sees the attack coming in, he prepares for it, and he even lowers his hand down and prepares to block it, right? And even redirect the force, because he goes on to say, heavenly hand of, and he gets this really cool shot where his hair is blowing in the wind and the energy is reverberating. But I don't know, kid, maybe you should have watched some of the former fights, because you got to know, these volumes are pretty fragile. Like, nothing has really stood up, especially even, and ironically enough, in the last fight with one of the Greek brothers that looked like Hades. What did Hades do? Pierce straight through a guard that was made of... Wait, hold on, let me see. Okay, notably, hers did not break on a guard, but she did break on a swing. Like, Sasaki went to go, like, swing at Poseidon with his weapon, and it shattered from a stab. So, for Kin to trust his pauldron so much is... I don't know, Kin, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. Because literally, Desmos not only just pierces straight through the pauldron, but Kin is forced... Like, he sacks what looks to be maybe 2 fingers, like straight up 2. I'm not sure, right? Because we see his thumb, his pointer, and his middle finger, and we see a finger pop off. So maybe he's only forced to lose the one, but I think he's literally lost 2 fingers in that exchange because his armor broke. It just wasn't strong enough. So that's where this whole idea of him possibly needing Hades' blood to counteract this loss, because that's a very, very big. He lost the usage of one of his hands and one of his armor pieces, and that's very vital. In fact, it's really, really bad because the tear through goes super deep. Like, it breaks more than just one part of the armor. And that was just really, I mean, it was a solid thrust. Like, Hades put a whole ton of force into it, but that was just a simple thrust of Desmos. So obviously losing that kind of defense is very, very bad, to the point where everyone who's watching and sees his kin took all that damage. Brunhild, Gear, Sasaki, Hurst, Isami Kondo, Sojo Kita. I always say their full names whenever I mention them. Brunhild, I said Brunhild again. Chiyo, I do believe, not Chiyo. That's the demon. Chunyan, his mother figure, is watching with just distinct terror in her eyes, because obviously this is a no good scenario, right? Like, this essentially looks like a lose condition right here, right now, because he takes extreme damage, he gets knocked back, and he couldn't even block. Like, none of this damage was returned to Hades. Hades just got off scot-free with a very deep stab, and sure, Kin is able to recover. He grabs the ground, slides as he drags his nails across the ground, stands up, and looks up, and is just looking at Hades with extreme damage on his face. And notably, we don't even get to see him rise back to full form before the chapter ends. We get to see that Hades proudly declares that as their elder brother, I shan't be defeated. And there we go. And honestly, I still got my money on Kin. Like, I know that's weird to say at this point, but I do think there is something to the, like, it's entirely possible that this is the losing point, but it seems strange that this isn't that. Like, if there was anything that was supposed to be a decisive blow to end the battle, that would be it. But it wasn't. Kin managed to survive, so I wouldn't be shocked if he pulls something out and manages to take the victory here. And I honestly still hope he does. Like, as cool as Hades is, as cool as Hades is, I do still really want Kin to win. However, that's it. This was a pretty short chapter, only 21 pages or so, and 2 of the pages were reused, so there wasn't necessarily much to talk about. I'm much more excited for chapter maybe 62. I'm not sure if it's going to be like 61.5 part 2 or whatever, but I'm very intrigued to see next chapter, mainly because it goes into Hades' backstory according to the spoilers. So I really do like the chapter still. It's still a solid, like, 7 out of 10. I like the idea of Desmos. I like the blood possibility that comes in here. And I do like the fact that Hades does get relevant and back into the battle. But actually, no, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for that. Just because there's a whole ton of stuff that does happen in the chapter. It's just not necessarily much to talk about. However, those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come on the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. And support for as low as $1 a month. Any support would be appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That on the Pencil, writing off.